Hi folks, it's John from lastchanceautorestore.com. I'd like to share with you another update. This is the 1956 Volkswagen Beetle oval rear window that we're doing a complete ground up or pan off restoration on. In an earlier video we shared with you where we're setting up the front nose and removing some of the rusted sections and comparing them or sharing with you the replacement panels. So we're doing the same thing. The next step is at the rear part of this Beetle. So we have, you can see here, our rear apron is now removed, and I'll share with you shortly the difference between the two aprons, the replacement one and the one that we removed. We've used all the factory spot weld marks and we've drilled all the spot welds out just as we did on the front. There's a couple of welds that the factory does at the top and over at the side. So we've ground them very carefully, we've cleaned them off and then removed or drilled out every factory correct spot weld. So that we have the old panel off, and then inside the engine bay area, and I have the pieces laid out here. I'm going to get my fat head in the way. So on this driver's side rear, this piece was originally set inside here, and it's heavily corroded. Obviously it's rusted through, not a whole lot of metal left there. So same idea, we've marked and drilled every factory spot weld. Same thing in the back, so we want to replicate that when we go to weld the new one in. And then you can see the difference between, this is an excellent reproduction of the very same piece. It has the two tabs that fold over. The grooves are identical and the thickness of the metal is correct, factory correct to what Volkswagen did back in the day. And then you can see on the back the difference obviously between a new and an old. So it's an excellent reproduction of that piece. So we have those set, and then obviously, not to bore you with too much, but same thing for this other side, heavily corroded both on the back side and on the inside panel. So we want to remove those, and then we have the replacement piece obviously for that too. So now that we have those sections out, excuse me, the next thing we do, because we shared with you in an earlier video all of these homemade patches for the rear bumper bracket, we have the replacement panel, and this is a substantial panel made by a very good brand that we really like. The weight of this is the identical weight to what they made in terms of thickness for it from the factory. It has the correct stamping and groove, and it has the section where the fender bolts on with the speed nuts already built in. So it's a wonderful reproduction of the actual part, and you can see how closely it's going to fit. So with a lot of measuring and marking, pardon me, with a lot of measuring and marking, we'll get this to be in the exact location. So once we mark it all, then we'll be removing this rusted section and replacing with this new section. And we'll share with you later on, there's a lot to this. Most guys like to just cut it off, get that one on there, have a little bit of an overlap. We're going to have it so it's flush from the original steel to the new panel. When we do that, we're going to basically dry fit the whole rear with the new section. So we'll tack weld and use some sheet metal screws for both outside replacement panels, and then we'll place these little guys on the inside, and then we'll also install or dry fit the rear apron. Once we do all of that, we're going to bolt the rear fender on, because we have to make sure that everything lines up correctly between the fender, the body, and the rear apron, because on the back of a Volkswagen Beetle, where the bottom of the apron is, pardon me, this is the old apron, where the fender attaches, there's a rollover, and we want to make this apron as close to the bottom of the fender as we can, because there's a fender welt that goes between those two panels. So you can see this is the original rear apron. There's been quite a bit of damage done to it, and you can see on the back, this is once again very, very common, where the whole inside or back section of the aprons rot out. And then same as the other panels, we've used all the original drilled out the factory spot welds so we can replicate that once again. And then when you see the difference between pardon me, the original apron You can see they look very, very accurate between the two, except this one, obviously the new one has a lot more metal than the old one does, but we have the authentic factory grooves, and we have the channel already installed for the rear rubber for the seal. And then we flip this over and we look at the section we see most of the time. It's what they refer to as the H-style apron. Pardon me. It's substantially more expensive to buy this authentic apron than it is to buy a reproduction that does not have these additional raised portions or the H portions in the groove. But this is an exact reproduction of the original. We want to make this oval window as authentic as possible, so we have the tab for the engine lid striker are identical, and then we even have the holes for the little rubber stoppers. They've marked them in the exact location. There's a little, that's the back part of the rubber stopper. So the only thing that's different, pardon me, same thing as the front apron, is they do not add this little lip that comes around that holds the rubber seal in for that rear engine lid seal. So the metal is identical, so what we do is we have to buy this metal channel, and then we will weld it in here to go all the way around, and then it will look exactly like factory original. So just a brief update, this is the rear section of the 1956 Volkswagen Beetle oval rear window. I thank you for watching. I'm John from lastchanceautorestore.com.